There's always a price to pay when you level up in life. And there's always a price to pay for anything you do and for any kind of attention that you provide to something that isn't worth your time. Well, that's a zero sum game. And that zero sum game is going to cost you. And the world is going to benefit, but not, well, maybe worldliness will benefit, but not society in general. Because if you're not being the most optimal you that you can be, you're failing not just the people around you and your ancestors, but the whole of humanity as a whole. The whole of creativity and the source of creation. People are watching you, whether you know it or not, especially if you're watching this channel. It's become clear to me that most people that are watching this channel are really working on themselves, or at least really striving to have that self-improvement mindset become a steady force in their life. And to do that, it's going to take loyalty, commitment, and really a sense of direction. When you don't have one of those three things, you're not going to make it. And the people that are watching you are going to enjoy you failing. They're going to enjoy it. And that is not something that I want to have happen in my life. There's a kind of look on people's face that I think is just the most satisfying. And it's not out of like vengeance or revenge or anything. It's about just true justice, about knowing that you were right and knowing that you said where this is all going and people didn't believe you. Some did, but some didn't. And those people that didn't believe you are now being exposed to exactly what you're saying. And they don't know how to handle it. All they know is that now they're going to watch every single move that you make. I've been reading the book, The 48 Laws of Power, and really just wanting to dive in about how to navigate the terrain of enemies, really. And one of the laws, law number 15, says to crush your enemy totally. And at first when I read this, I thought it was a bit harsh. But then I thought a little bit about what one of the examples that he gives about Moses and how he parted the Red Sea from the Jews. And God actually said that they would be utterly destroyed and that we being Moses and his tribe, make no covenant with them and show no mercy to them. And it's like, well, that's a pretty harsh thing for God to do. But is it? To those that... Is it right to show mercy to people that are stalking you or gang stalking you? I'm not sure if anybody on here is familiar with gang stalking, but essentially the idea and what it really is when there's a small group of people, maybe like a clique or something. It's not necessarily a gang per se, but it's just a little group of people that are trying to go out of their way to get information about you to use against you. I've had this happen throughout my life without even really knowing it. for like the first part of my life. And it was only until the last like 2 or 3 years when I really started to understand what was happening, but I didn't know the term gang stalking until like last year. And I knew that there were like certain people that were like keeping tabs on me and that were trying to like find and like pinpoint weaknesses of mine. The thing is though, is that I'm completely open about my weaknesses. And when I have that kind of vulnerability, there's nothing that can be used against me. Like I have nothing to fear because I already know my weaknesses. And so like I'll just capitalize on my strengths and use my weaknesses as and insecurities as ways to capitalize on my strengths. Well, how do you do that? One might ask. One of the people that were part of the gang stalkers, I guess you could say, was actually trying to bring this out of me at one point in time. And just like how do you do what you do? And like, but it was like she was spying on me though. It was like she was trying to like, she was definitely very snaky, like, I guess you could say a snake like. She wasn't wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove, that's for sure. She was very cunning. And this is another thing that people, I think, need to know more about is that men and women view violence and ways of violence very differently. Men view violence in terms of like physical violence. And then women view violence in terms of like reputation destruction, right? So the more that a woman is, wrathful towards you, I guess you could say, and this goes for whether she's angry at a man or a woman, she's going to try to expose certain things about him that are maybe not even true, likely not even true, if she's emotionally unstable and neurotic and incapable of cognitive functions and having a cognitive dissonance. She's going to project a lot of the things that she's doing onto these people, whereas the man will usually raise his voice and just not stay calm. And I mean, this is another thing too, like the law for women to get charged, like to charge men with like assault of some kind, is extremely pliable. So the man like has to be completely calm and stoic in order to just not get a potential arrest for an assault charge of some kind. Like I've read stories online in YouTube comments on other different YouTube channels where the guy came home from work, didn't know what was going on. The woman called 911 and started telling the police that this man was going to assault her and all this stuff. And the man was like trying to get closer to her, saying like, "What are you talking about? We don't need to like put down the phone. You don't need to do that." And so then and of course this is like, just reading a comment. So, but the thing is like the guy ended up being arrested for assault, and he didn't even touch her. So, and this was in the U.S., if I remember correctly. And so, like, with men though, it's very direct whenever there's like a kind of confrontation. It's usually like, all right, let's go outside then. It's pretty pretty basic. And sometimes they don't even want to, like, sometimes they don't even ask the question, you want to go outside? Like, they just start. So like, the thing is like, being aware how people, specifically men and women, view reputation and violence is really important in navigating the terrain of gang stalking. And you really just have to get to a point to where you recognize and you understand that you're going to have to be in a spiritual fight for the remainder of your existence. Every single day is going to be a battle. And it's up to you to put on that spiritual armor. Whether, like, that's one of the reasons I work out in the morning. Whenever I work out in the morning, like, I didn't even start doing this until last May. Like, usually I would work out in the evenings. And it wasn't until, like, I was just like, I want to get working out in the morning and just, like, get all my like hard, heavy lifting or physical activity done out of the way. Whoops. Out of the way in the morning, so that later on, like, the rest of the day will practically be a breeze. So what I learned in these kinds of exercises in the morning is that I can deal with trauma through the pain of working out. And I can, like, access parts of my spirit that I wouldn't have necessarily been able to access if I wasn't under that kind of physical pressure voluntarily. And so I ended up being fairly successful in this endeavor and have used it as a tool ever since. The point here is that when you, like, there are two ways to overcome spiritual or just emotional trauma. Number one is willful suffering. And number two is you have to just work through it by talking about it. There's no way around not talking about it. You have to talk about it. And some people are so, they've been, like, wired, like, think about it like a jack in the box, where people have been wired for so long. That jack in the box is waiting to come out any second now. And like, with the jack in the box, sometimes, like, when you actually finally get to that one click in your turn where the jack in the box finally comes out, it's most difficult at that time. At least the jack in the boxes that I had when I was little. And when you finally, like, get that lever and it pops out, it's kind of like, whoa. Didn't know that was in there, right? And so it's really just it's just about, like, unboxing it and really looking at it and really accepting it for what it is. Because what else are you going to do? There's really nothing else to do. So, as far as gang stalking goes, you're going to have to be on watch. Keep your head on a swivel. In your mind, think of yourself as a German shepherd, really, or just a guard dog of some kind of your spirit. And the reason for this is because when you recognize that not everybody has your best interest at heart, and not everybody is going to want to see you succeed, and not everybody is going to want to see you endure, you're going to have to be more alert. You're going to have to get yourself in shape. You're going to have to get your mind right. More than anything else, get your mind right. And that may take some kind of stoicism on your part, whether you're male or female. I think both males and females could use more stoicism in this world. But the home run of emotional control over oneself is that you can be completely comfortable in your own skin. And that kind of like coolness about you, that like coolness of love within yourself, is going to naturally radiate around you. And it's almost like people are going to want to like penetrate your aura or your energy bubble, I guess you could say, because they can see that there's something different about you. I had an experience at the coffee shop this morning. I was just waiting to get my coffee, and this guy struck up a conversation next to me. And as we were just waiting for our coffees, and the thing about the interaction itself was like from the get-go, I knew that this was going to be a spiritual battle just by the way he approached me. It wasn't necessarily aggressive, but it was more like a passive aggressive. And I've also been experiencing more trolls on YouTube lately. I don't know what it is, but there's just more trolls. And I understand that like when you have a platform that is public, specifically on YouTube, because that just seems it's YouTube or Twitter or whatever. That's where a lot of like the online drama comes from. The smart thing to do is to, I think in my estimation anyway, hear them out first, because like it's always nice to get kind of that kind of criticism and to see where you're at, and especially like if it bothers you and it causes an emotional reaction in you, then you know that there's a part of you that you need to look closer at, and that there's a darkness to you that you haven't really examined enough. Or they could just be trying to instigate your emotions just because they're an asshole. So there's like two different ways you could look at it. Either way, though, those people are watching you too. Those people are watching you. And so this guy at the coffee shop, he was very, very attentive to me. And he like tried to play nice. I could tell it was just a mask and a front though. And I was just trying to mind my own business. I didn't try to like engage in a super long conversation. And he just kind of kept talking. And I could tell that he just wanted to be heard. Like that's really what he wanted to do. He didn't really care whether he was right. he didn't care whether he was really wrong. He just wanted to be heard. And he just kind of looked for an emotional punching bag. And I wasn't that emotional punching bag that he was looking for, which surprised him. And he was kind of caught off guard by me expressing a dislike of the interaction. And I was just setting a boundary, which I think is very healthy. If you have that kind of thing going on in your life where somebody is really just trying to press your buttons just to press your buttons, it's okay to just no. No is a full sentence. And or just saying like, I don't like it when this happens, or when a situation like this occurs with people. Try to keep it like impersonal. And or just stick to your beliefs and principles, because the person that is trying to attack you spiritually or emotionally or physically doesn't have those internal virtues or boundaries or anything like that. In fact, it is the people that with no boundaries at all are oftentimes the most dangerous in my experience, because you don't know where the line is. And so your reality just kind of becomes meshed, which is really based on like relationship enmeshment. I guess that's why you can call it enmeshment, but or codependency as well. Like codependency is when you rely on the other person to like feed your emotional unmet needs that you can't fulfill yourself, or the validation that you can't fulfill yourself. And so anyway, with this guy, he was like stunned that I had self-respect, and it actually like I could see there was like a he like liked it, but he didn't like it as well, which is usually what happens when people try to test you and you hold firm. But when you hold firm, like it's also good to know when to walk away from a situation. And I ended up just basically waiting it out and leaving after I got my coffee and left. But the thing is that I could sense that there was a kind of envy to my contentness, and I was alert. Like I was just I'm there. I'm 100% on point. I am focused and I'm determined. And if I'm going to have anybody on my team, I want them to be capable of having those kinds of qualities. You don't need to be the number one person in the world or the best at anything or something specifically. And trying is very an important part of growth. You have to be willing to put in the effort. But if you get to a point where the effort is not producing any fruit, then you're doing something wrong. And I speak metaphorically here. When you are working hard and there's not any results that you're looking for, something needs to change. Something needs to be updated. A kind of belief system or a kind of action that you're performing in the world, something needs to change. And the only way that it's going to happen is if it comes from you. The reality is that the world is becoming a very harsh place. And those that are able to develop a thick skin and those that are able to detect and discern these kinds of people and to keep themselves in check with self-discipline and self-respect, you're the people that are going to have the most fulfilling relationships down the line, because you're going to naturally attract those kinds of people. That's another thing that seems to happen. Like whenever you're like ready to level up, the universe just kind of like magically presents this door. At least like seemingly sometimes, right? Like it's just like sometimes it just comes out of nowhere and it's like, whoa, hey, there's that. Cool, that's amazing. That's exactly what I was looking for. And I just had to really reorient everything that I could reorient in my life to ensure that I got it and have no expectations, and boom, there it was. Like, it's just weird how that happens sometimes, you know? It's just part of that quality of the universe of asking you to trust it. And to trust God. So be sure to keep an eye out on what's going on and hold on to those that you care for, and make sure that you know that they are feeling your presence, as well as just being with them. Know that they are being with you. And to all of the enemies that we have, may God have mercy on them if he thinks it's right. Peace be with you. Till next time.